autism, and lots of fun. So if you're into that kind of content, please subscribe to my channel. I come out with videos every single week, and I'm really loving it so far. Thank you so much for 35 subscribers. I can't even believe I started this channel 4 weeks ago and we're already at 35. I'm so excited that you are loving the content, you're interested in it, and I'm really pumped that I'm actually making videos. Today's video is a special one that I was contemplating about even filming, mostly because I feel weird. It's not my story to tell, it's my son's autism diagnosis story. But I did want to put it out there because I do know as this channel gets growing, it's going to be a question that I'm probably going to get a lot. What are the signs? How did we know? What's the process like? And so I want to unpack that all today in this really casual conversation about how Isaiah got diagnosed with autism. We are actually almost a year into his diagnosis so far. It's about to be diagnosis day, actually. Pretty soon. He was diagnosed July of last year almost. I want to say July 17th. I'll put the actual date right here for you guys, but it's around this time where he was diagnosed last year. And I just remember honestly feeling so relieved, honestly being so happy that we had answers, that we had a name to what we've just been seeing since he was an infant, honestly. And so we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna explain it. I'm gonna go pretty loosely over the details. Again, I don't want to get into too many details just because I want to respect my son's privacy and respect his story. And I know when he gets old enough, he will want to share it in his own words. So I want to be able to leave room for that and not blast the internet with my own opinions and things like that. But we will go over it for information's sake. We will go over it. A quick disclaimer though, I am not a doctor. I am not a autism specialist. I am not a special needs specialist. I am not a teacher. I am just a mom. I'm not giving any medical advice in this video. I'm just sharing the signs that we saw in my son, Isaiah, who is 3. He was diagnosed at 2. And I'm just sharing his story. Not telling you what to do, just giving you the story. If you are curious about how it happened and what we saw, this is it. So grab your tea, grab your coffee, grab your drink, because y'all know I already got mine. So let's get into it. Yay. Isaiah, his birthday is November 1st, 2017. One of the happiest days of my life, giving birth to this child. And you know what? From about 0 to 6 months, everything was fine. Everything was perfect. He hit all of his milestones. He was such a happy baby. That's one of the main things that I remember. He was a really good infant. He wasn't the best sleeper. Lots of infants aren't great sleepers though, so do with that information what you want. But he wasn't the best sleeper like most infants, but he was overall a really happy baby. We really enjoyed his first 6 months of life. He seemed to really be engaged, be smiley, all the typical baby things. And I'm trying my hardest to remember because it kind of has been a long time ago. I remember was when he entered the 6 to 12 month mark. That's when we started seeing a couple of things that was kind of like, a little bit of eyebrow raisers, things like that. So one of the things I do remember in infancy was that Isaiah had a hard time rolling over. So that was one of the things that he was late to rolling over. He was late to sit up, and he was actually kind of late to crawl too. So all 3 of those milestones, he was kind of delayed on. But once he did start crawling, he was walking right away. You couldn't tell him nothing. He went straight from crawl. It took him so long to crawl that he did not waste any time to walk. He was walking way before 1. And I remember one person told me if they're, early to walk, they're late to talk. And I kind of stuck that in the back of my mind because lo and behold, he wasn't saying any words. He wasn't clapping. He didn't point. He rarely had any eye contact or anything like that with anybody. So, but one thing he was doing really well was climbing. Gross motor skills was off the charts. He was so good at his gross motor skills, and he was just really killing it in that area. But when it came to social skills, He didn't clap, he didn't point, he didn't look at anything that was interesting and wanted to show us. He didn't bring us any toys. He didn't talk. He wasn't interested in a lot of that stuff, but I can tell he understood what we were saying. His receptive language was really good, but he just didn't have any expressive language. So by the time he was 18 months old, he had 0 words, 0 expressive language, and he increased in tantrums. He started screaming a lot. He cried at the drop of a hat. He had tantrums, and rightfully so. He had no language. So that was really hard for him to try to communicate, and he just almost couldn't find a way to try to communicate with us. And I took him to the story times. I read to him. I played with him as much as I could. I was still a working mom then too. And, it's really hard when you don't know. You kind of feel like you're failing in a way. You kind of think like maybe I'm not doing something right. So I did go to his pediatrician by the time he was 18 months old, and was like, he's not talking, there's something wrong. I really feel like he needs some help in this area. What can we do to help him? And so that's when we started him in speech therapy, and that was amazing. I stand for speech therapy 100%. It helped him so much. We started off with baby sign, and then that led into him speaking a few words and being able to label lots of things, lots of words. So that was from 0 to 18 months. Again, I know I breezed by the infancy stage, but honestly, he didn't really show that many signs of autism when he was a baby. But in the 6 to 12 month mark, no eye contact. That was like number one. No social skills. If anybody would like talk to him, hey buddy, how are you? Come up to him, he would kind of just like glaze over them. He had no expression. So those always were in the back of my mind. It's like, because I saw other kids, and I work with kids for a living. I know that's something that, 12-month-olds, 15-month-olds, they can, acknowledge you. And he just didn't do anything like that. Also, from a young age, he was really attached to objects, just objects that weren't toys. He would really be into sticks, rocks, pens, coins, stuff that he had a bunch of toys, but he didn't want to play with any of those. He would want to line them up, and he would want to like organize them in little piles, and he had his own system of playing with things. He did like books. He was really advanced in puzzles. Before he was even 18 months old, he knew his alphabet letters. He wasn't saying them, but he could point out each like letter of the alphabet. And he knew his numbers. He could point out numbers. Again, wasn't saying the numbers, but he was at least able to identify numbers and like print and stuff like that. So I just thought, I'm like, hey, he's not talking, but he's able to do all kinds of cool other stuff. And I love the fact that he was able to catch on to the pre-academics really well. But he was really lacking in the social skills. So at 18 months old, I did start a preschool job, and he started with me. He went to the preschool with me. And so I was thinking, this is good. He's in daycare. He's going to be able to learn and get social skills and be able to, grow from other kids. And turns out he really was kind of a loner. They had group time, they had circle time, and I would always see him off to the side in his own world, doing his own thing. And, he was just pretty much a very independent kid from I can remember. Honestly, he still is like that. He would rather play on his own a lot. He really doesn't need anybody to help him. And he had a lot of comfort items. He was still on a pacifier, so we had to kind of wean him off of that. Then he gravitated to other things, like things that just wouldn't usually be comfort items. And so it was all really just, I just wasn't really sure. He was really attached to a sippy cup, and he would go to sleep with the sippy cup at nap time. And it was almost like a teddy bear to some kids. He loved this sippy cup or any other thing he can get his hand on that just really wasn't his usual, or really wasn't a usual thing that you would see most kids with. So these are all kind of the red flags that I saw from an early age that I was just like, this is just, and I just really couldn't let it go. So fast forward to the story is all over the place, my goodness. Fast forward to going back to his pediatrician at 18 months old when I told her, we need help. She put us in speech therapy. It was awesome. And so he started speaking words. Cool. So I was like, okay, so he's just going to catch up, right? Well, some other stuff started happening. So between 18 months and 24 months, that's when it really exploded. Like autism signs really exploded. And by this point, I was already having an inclination that there could be something else. I was thinking mostly ADHD because he's super hyperactive. He loves jumping, he loves spinning, he loves running. Those were all to an extreme point. I know most toddlers run and spin and jump. Trust me, I know. But for Isaiah, it was like times 10. He just really couldn't sit still. He started having trouble sleeping. At night, he would wake up in the middle of the night. He wouldn't take naps. And again, this all contributed to his behavior because he started screaming a lot. He started being fussy and upset because he wasn't sleeping. That was that issue. What else? He started hand flapping. That is by far like the constant theme that I see with kids on the spectrum. They like to hand flap. We call it happy flappy. He does his little happy hands and he jumps. And, so that's another thing that I noticed. Also, with loud noises, he started covering his ears. That's another sign, red flag. If you see your child covering their ears a lot, hand flapping. He also did a lot of vocal noises. Lots of like deep throat vocal stems. I did not know they were stems at the time. And stem is just a shortened version of the word, or like it's called self-simulatory behavior, but people in the autism world call it stemming. So that's just a way for them to regulate, calm themselves down when they are overwhelmed. And my son, there's tons of different stems, you guys. And again, I'm not a professional. Clearly, you can see I'm not a professional, so I'm not really explaining it the best way. But there's tons of different stems. My son just happens to be a vocal stemmer. So he likes to make noises. There's no other way to say it. He just likes to make noises. It's just like, my goodness, like I'm not really sure what to do about all of this newfound behavior. And it was becoming to a point where we were stressed out. We could tell he was unhappy and we just needed help. So I called early intervention when we moved here where we are currently right now. We're in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so I was like, listen, here's the thing. I think my son might be on the autism spectrum because by now I've been looking up and Googling like most moms would do. By this point he was talking more, but it was these behaviors that I just couldn't get past. The picky eating, that's another thing. He was a very extremely picky eater, would hardly eat. Certain textures just wasn't his thing. And I just couldn't understand why he couldn't eat at mealtime. Things like that. He couldn't express when he needed something, wanted something. He would just cry, wouldn't point still, had a hard time clapping and interacting. So all of these things combined had me phone our state's early intervention and say, hey, these are the things I'm looking at and seeing in my son. Can we see if we can get him some help? So first, of course, for anything, they wanted to do an evaluation, obviously, which I was fine with. And so here we were in the midst of COVID because he just turned 2 in November. We moved to Nevada in January and then COVID hit, right, for everybody. And so we were in the process of doing a ton of Zoom calls and a ton of phone calls and trying to get this child diagnosed in the middle of COVID. And it was just the most extreme, wild situation, but I had to fight. And that's one thing that, if my biggest piece of advice as a parent, a lot of people are going to tell you things. I remember taking him to his speech therapy, and one lady who was evaluating literally told me he wasn't autistic because he was too social. And so lots of people will like to tell you things that they, think about and what they feel. And y'all, if you still have that feeling, I tell you, I will say this to the heavens, do not stop until you get the proper answers for your child, because people left and right will tell you, oh, I think this, oh, I had a friend who did this, he's not autistic, blah, blah, blah. And, it's all in good, it's all for good reason. I'm sure that they are just trying to be nice and calm you down. But I'm so glad I didn't listen to them. I'm so glad I didn't take someone else's word for it. I'm so glad I didn't sit on all the feelings that I had as a parent. And I'm so glad that I continued to fight for my child, because that landed him his diagnosis here in Las Vegas. And he's gotten the proper help that he needs and he's thriving now. But before, I was just thinking well, maybe I'm psycho, maybe I'm just not, maybe I'm being extra, maybe I'm doing too much, And a lot of people were like, no, he's fine. No, he's fine. Just wait it out. And I'm really glad I didn't do that. So my biggest piece of advice, if you're watching this and you're considering getting an evaluation for your child, do it. Don't let anybody talk you out of it. It's better if a professional evaluates your child than you not knowing, and that's delaying their services. At 2.5, we got him his evaluation for early intervention. Now, they cannot diagnose. They can just pretty much tell you, and this is just in my state, I don't know about other states, but they can pretty much just tell you, like, yes, you should get an evaluation, or no, they just need blah, 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 blah. So he got an evaluation through early intervention, and he was declared autistic through their program. Now, it wasn't an official diagnosis, but that did open up extra services for him, and they prompted me to go ahead and get an official evaluation through the pediatrician and all that fun stuff. We actually didn't get diagnosed through our pediatrician. We actually got diagnosed by a neuropsychologist here who was amazing. It took 2 days. It was a long process, few hours each day. But when he got his results, he was diagnosed with autism level 2. And to my understanding, the levels just mean what kind of support he needs and things like that. But that opened up the door for him to do ABA therapy, and he's been doing really good with that. We plan on doing OT and speech once we move. And yeah, he's just been doing really good. He's talking now. He can talk in sentences now. And, you know, he's just growing in ways that I just, at the time, looking back, I just was never sure if I would ever hear his voice. I was never sure if he would ever be, you know, able to do all the things that, you know, a child his age should be able to do. Play and make friends. It was just so far away from my mind. I just couldn't even imagine what that would be like. Encouraging you guys today, if you have a child that you think might have some red flags, definitely talk to the pediatrician. Look it up online. That's what I did. Look up symptoms online. You know, talk to the pediatrician, talk to others, observe other kids. You know, it's really important to be proactive in this way, because early intervention is key. Even with my youngest is about to turn 2, and me and my husband have been seeing some stuff with him as far as him being on the spectrum. So he too will be getting an evaluation once we move. And it's not bad news. Autism is not the end of the world. Autism is not a death sentence, you guys. Autism is such a gift. These kids are gifted. Let me tell you, my son is so gifted in ways that I couldn't even describe. He is so advanced in a lot of ways, other than what people would think is the norm. And these kids are just truly so special, and they need to be nurtured. That's another reason why a diagnosis would be awesome, because it opens up services for them, and it opens up a team for them to come alongside of your child and help them along through life. And it's important for them to have that circle of support for them to guide them and help them through life. So autism is not something to fear. Honestly, I look at it as a celebratory thing. Each child is unique and different in their own way, and my kids, and I'm saying kids because we're pretty sure my second is also, you know, they're autistic. That's who they are. That's what God has blessed them with. And you know what? It's like honestly the best thing ever. They are so awesome. They're such awesome kids, and I will never ever want them to change. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And we also have our social links, so if you want to keep up with us throughout the week in between videos, you can find us on Instagram. And I hope to see you guys next week. We have some fun videos being planned. We're in the process of moving. As you can see, our room is pretty bare here, so we'll be doing a room setup soon in our new home. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.